Hey all, syllabus. So I have the syllabus posted. Please read through it. It's a pretty thorough document. I do my best to make sure I lay everything out so that there's less confusion. And if you do see areas there that you're not clear on, I'm also opening a forum discussion to let everyone post anything if it's not private or something like that where it's a one-on-one conversation. Please bring it to the forum because other students might have had the same question as well. And I'll talk more about class participation in the forums in a moment, but they're going to be an important piece of this course, so why not start right now with the syllabus? The only part I want to point out in the overview, really, obviously all of my information on where to find me is there, is office hours, being that this is an online course. If you happen to live close to Marist or you're on campus for any reason, of course, come and see me during office hours, in person. That's absolutely fine. Don't feel because it's an online course that you have to conduct everything online. If you're there, great. I would love to see you in person and have a chat. But of course, it's understandable that many times you won't be near campus or perhaps live nowhere near campus. If that's the case, we will also use WebEx and chat tools and, to be honest, any medium that works for you. So if you find that there's a better way, like to do a hangout or whatever works, that is absolutely fine with me. The office hours are still the best time to set that up, and the link I have there is for an app called Calendly. I found this app is super effective at getting people scheduled for office hours in a way that I hope, and I think most of the time, does result in a good situation where you're not sitting in a line with your back against the wall for a long period of time. It also allows me to do things like schedule video chats with students online in a way that doesn't affect the on-the-ground students who it's easier for them to pop in at any time. So it's just one of those things that I've found works really well. It can break down a little bit around midterms and finals when things get super hectic. But overall, and even then, I've honestly found it works really well. 99% of the time, it really does. So you can click on that link. It's super simple. It asks you for a day. It shows you the time slots available. You literally just click on them. I think it asks you for your email. That's it. There's also a QR code there. So since this is a mobile development course, go ahead and give that a shot with your camera, and it'll bring you right to it. Course description. I'm going to talk about the different aspects of the course with little introductory videos. So I'm going to keep this short, but basically the idea here is this is a really high level course. It's 722. So at this point, and it's perfect for this kind of course because the amount of content and the amount of things to be aware in this space is very, very large. So we can't spend a lot of time on the nuances of, learning how to use the Android IDE or setting up the Apple iOS development environment with Xcode. Like those pieces, I'm going to expect that you're going to be able to figure out on your own. Students today have all kinds of development environments. Some use Mac, some use Windows, some use Linux, and that is a good thing. But it also means that if I were to try to force standardization or only teach it one way, that I'd be leaving a large portion of the population out. And that's not the best way to approach things. At this point, you guys should be at a place where you are comfortable taking on a new challenge and learning how to install and use a new programming language and software suite and everything else that comes along with it. So I do expect that you will take on that challenge. And again, the forums will be available for you to use, and I encourage you to do so to communicate with one another. Course objectives are all there. I'm not going to go through them bullet by bullet. Same with learning measurements. The assignments and the way the grades break down, I'm going to come back to class participation. The other ones are pretty straightforward. There's going to be a research assignment that actually starts this week, so look for that video down below. There's going to be 3 projects, and they all will in some sense kind of have some continuity. We're going to talk more about that when the projects kick off in about 2 weeks, but they're roughly going to divide the semester into 3 pieces. The first one is going to focus on native development. The second one is going to focus, bring in the enterprise piece of this course a lot more, because we're going to talk about connectivity, RESTful interfaces, using services in the cloud, that kind of thing. And the third piece is something I'm really excited about. Again, this is something that I'm going to talk about in a video further down this week, at least at an introductory point, because later we'll dive into the details. But that's augmented reality. And augmented reality is going to be, many believe, and this is no longer just conjecture, but pretty solid. Augmented reality is most likely going to be what mobile was as far as a change 10 years ago. So it's going to be that next big shift in how we interface and use technology. And it's a huge opportunity to live through that and to develop in those times, because there's all these new ways to do things that just didn't exist in the previous paradigms. So it's super exciting, and because we don't necessarily have like the answer to what augmented reality interface will look like at this moment, there's some ideas, but there's no iPhone or Android, so to speak, that's popped out into the world and said this is it. You can use our current world, our current mobile world, to visit that world. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of bring this class at the end into that realm, and it really at that point I think is a great exercise for this class level, because it's a challenge to get you to think about solving problems in new ways that are completely out of the box and different. But I'm going to talk more about that when we get into that section. Like I said, we are actually going to introduce that this week, so it gets the gears moving, get you thinking about it, and then we'll dive deeper into it later in the semester. And speaking about that, well, I'll come back to the schedule. I apologize. I wanted to talk about the rest of assessment. We will have a midterm and a final. They will be given through iLearn. I will give you more details about the tests as the time approaches. And the last one there, well, it's the first one, but the last to discuss is class participation. So being that this is an online course, I just want to be clear about what class participation is going to entail. So really what I'm looking for here is that you're active in the online community, that you're logging in, and in particular, I'm looking to see that you're using the forums actively. I want to see, that's the same as being in class and asking a question, or talking to your peers and helping them work through an issue like setting up their development environment or something. We're going to use the forums in that same manner, and I'm going to set them up so that those interactions can happen. And I invite you to have those interactions because it's going to make it a better experience for all of us. And that is exactly what I'm going to be looking for in class participation. So I'm not the kind of teacher who says, that there's 2 mandatory forum posts every week, that kind of thing. It's just kind of implied. You have to be in there making forum posts to be part of the conversation, right? And that's how I'm going to be judging class participation, is how active you are, mostly in the forums. Schedule. I'm not going to go through this line by line, but I do just want to point out again the range of the topics, and this is a very exciting course for me to teach. I've been doing mobile development for a long time, and I'll talk more about that in another video when I talk about my background. But basically, teaching at this level allows us to hit on these topics. So we're going to talk about things like indoor localization techniques, Bluetooth low energy versus Wi-Fi versus the magnetic signatures that you can actually pull from the magnetic signature of the Earth mixing with a steel building. There's actually a unique signature there that a phone can pick up. There's so many things you can do with these devices. We're going to talk about the hardware. We're going to talk about all the sensors and the GPS and the different radios and what they're good for. Ways you may have never thought to use those things in the past, but they work really well. We will do the basics. We will start with an Android and an iOS primer. We're going to talk a lot about the different ways to develop, whether it's native or cross-platform or over the web. They're all good choices that solve different problems. RESTful interfaces, cloud services, data persistence, local and otherwise, distribution on mobile platforms, and hopefully even maybe some game development near the end. I've used a cross-platform system called libgx in the past, and I've had good experiences with it. And again, it's just more knowledge is more tools in your toolbox. More options for you on your next project, and we'll talk more about that. But it's an exciting schedule of topics. I think you will enjoy it. The rest of the syllabus I will let you go through on your own. Attendance policy, obviously it's online, so that kind of comes back around to the class participation, that piece. One thing I didn't mention here, it is written out in the lab section, but labs are optional in this class in the sense they are not part of your grade. There is one lab that is required for you to do, because I need your GitHub account. I need it hooked up to my Marist Gormanly organization and all that and the team, so I can see your code. But all the others are recommended, and they are recommended if they are on a topic that you may want to improve your skills in that surrounds developing, right? So I have one for using Bash and terminal. Like I use Bash or Z Shell all the time. So Z Shell is my personal favorite. But for people who don't use a terminal prompt all that much, that might be something that you want to expand your skills on. Same with Git. I imagine most students at this point have been using Git quite a bit, but I have 2 labs on that. One to set it up, which is required, the other which is completely optional, which shows you a little bit about how to use Git workflows, how to create a branch so you can work with multiple developers without stepping on each other's toes, do a merge request or a pull request, depending if it's just terminology, GitLab or GitHub, that kind of thing. But all that stuff is in there. It's optional. All the labs are. They're not part of the grade. Oh, one last thing, communication. Please use my email. That is by far the best way to reach me. I'm very good about checking email normally. If more than a day goes by and you don't hear back from me, of course there is the fluke situation. I just didn't get to it or something, but that would be rare. So feel free to reach out to me again in case it got missed, something like that. But I do try to be prompt with email, and that is most definitely the best way to start the conversation and get in touch with me. And the least chance of me missing something. Like I took iLearn messages out because it just wasn't working for me. But I will see you in the next video.